And another great session and another great speaker here at the Enterprise Integration Summit, this time from Software AG. We have with us Anne-Marie Bond, Senior Manager, Product Marketing. Anne-Marie, welcome.
Thanks, Vance. It's great to be here.
We are really glad to have Anne-Marie with us this morning. She focuses on hybrid integration, APIs, microservices, and cloud, many of topics that we know that our attendees are interested in this morning. She has more than 10 years experience at Software AG and has held posts in integration for apps, data, and cloud. So this expertise is going to be terrifically valuable and practical. Her session today is entitled Capturing the Value of Microservices. You know, we're seeing a ton of interest in microservices, and as it continues to skyrocket, two basic questions keep coming up. How can we ensure we're getting value from the whole effort? And perhaps most importantly, how do we translate any technical value we're getting from microservices to the business stakeholders? Lucky for us, Anne-Marie is going to address both of those with great specificity and some practical advice. She's going to show us how to build your use case for investing in microservices, especially with an API-led approach to make that a lot easier for staffs that know API technology. She's going to share some guidelines on how to get IT and business in sync and ways to deliver a state-of-the-art solution. And to let you know it's not all theory, she's going to share some great examples. So before we go to Anne-Marie, just a quick note, you can download her slides. I highly recommend you do if you haven't already. Just hit that red button. We've also gathered some other great supplemental downloads for you. Just click the ones you want. You'll get them right away. No registration required. And any questions, just type in the submit a question box. So with all that, Anne-Marie, let me turn to you and tell us about capturing the value of microservices.
Thanks so much, Vance. Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Today, I want to talk about how to capture the value of microservices, both from a technology perspective, ensuring you're adopting the best practices for implementing them effectively, but also from a business perspective, explaining to business leaders what it might mean to be able to use microservices for their business. And microservices have been used by some of the most innovative companies in the world. Netflix is well known for its early transition to a microservices-based architecture. When you browse Netflix, each function you choose is a microservice. It's independently supported and it's scalable. And what that enables them to do is roll out functions piece by piece as they're ready and scale them to consumer demand. It's a powerful capability. And Uber, Amazon, Google, and many more have also used microservices to create disruptive products. It's most valuable when you're talking about business capabilities that change frequently. And in most industries, that's our consumer-facing products that are constantly changing and are the source of differentiation. Things like customer engagement, sales and servicing channels in retail, banking, insurance, and utilities. These are prime candidates. And there are a couple other related trends that we're seeing in the market, cloud and APIs. By the end of 2020, more than 83% of workloads will be done in the cloud. And APIs are the new normal for accessing data and services wherever they are in your ecosystem. They've transitioned to a critical business resource, and it's managed much like a product is managed with its own lifecycle. And of course, microservices are now considered essential for agility. These three trends combine to enable you to deliver cloud-ready, scalable, agile capabilities that leverage services and data from anywhere in your ecosystem. And the role of microservices in delivering that is the core of this presentation. But how can you build the business case for investing in a microservices and API-led approach? Businesses are operating in a dynamic and competitive market. They need to deliver innovation and differentiation quickly. You have to tie it back to core goals. Things like connected customer experience. Customers expect applications and services to be personalized. And now all virtual scenarios are presenting additional challenges because you have to deliver them across multiple remote channels. You also want to make incremental changes quickly so you can respond to changing needs from your customers. And of course, everything has to be highly secure and reliable because it's easy for your customers to drop one provider and move on to the next. Using APIs as the standard way to access data and services enables you to operate across multiple channels. And microservices gives you the agility to move in new directions and react to customer needs. Growing business is always an attractive goal for the business, but not just organically, but through new markets, new channels. And in this case, engaging in fast fail projects without impacting your systems of record or your existing customers is an ideal way to figure out what works and what doesn't. but you want to align the size and speed of those IT initiatives with the business goals. And you want to be able to scale quickly. So if you're successful, then you can maximize the value of that successful initiative. Again, APIs are the standard way to make those products and services available. They're the way that most mobile and social products are delivered today. And they're also a way to take your products and make them available to resellers so they can promote them through their own channels. Finally, streamlining your business operations, protecting your bottom line is really critical these days as businesses strive to ensure that they remain stable in a complex environment. And massive migration projects are no longer popular. The trend is to use what you have and think small. You can take your existing siloed business processes and you can merge them using APIs to get a unified enterprise view. You can turn other legacy services into microservices and APIs without recoding, which means you don't have to hire new developers. And you can take on smaller projects for incremental modernization using microservices so that you can achieve modernization without having to take on big bang expensive projects. So what are some examples of how businesses might benefit from this approach? Let's talk about banking. Most consumers want to open a bank account online, but they don't necessarily want to visit the bank. In fact, today I read that 70% of millennials prefer to go to the dentist than to the bank. But one of our customers, a bank in Indonesia, adopted microservices and APIs fairly early because they wanted to expand to the mobile market. And they were able to add 80,000 new customers in just a couple of months. In addition to this scalability, banking apps are now expected to do things like integrate with peer-to-peer transfer applications like Venmo, PayPal, and others, and they need to be constantly adding new fraud detection tools. It's a really dynamic market. The healthcare industry has been thrust to the forefront with the need to support patients, especially remotely. One of our customers who's already using APIs is taking a patient-first approach to evolve their solutions. And they're leveraging technologies from APIs to microservices to IoT devices so that they can build new adaptive tools. These new tools will incorporate touchless processes, context-based guidance. For example, they'll let you know where you can park in the parking garage. And in some cases, they'll deliver diagnosis and prescriptions without ever being in the same room. The last example I have is around e-commerce. Purchases these days are primarily taking place online, and we're seeing a marketplace-based approach to e-commerce where retailers sell other people's stuff on their website, and then it's shipped directly from the supplier. One of our retail customers has a goal to become a leader in this omni-channel sales environment. But what this means is you have to link a mobile app, which is what your consumer's using, or a website, to a complex chain of B2B providers in real time. You have to communicate accurate inventory, you have to be able to complete the transaction, and you want to be able to ship directly from the supplier so it ships faster. All of this generally requires using APIs. Your supplier provides you an API, you use the API to complete the transaction and set up the shipping. E-commerce sites also need to anticipate that they might have things like unpredictable loads on Black Friday. Using microservices for scalability ensures that they can meet their needs. So microservices, APIs, and really behind the scenes, the cloud are making this all possible. They're making it possible to create innovative new products because microservices can create small independent teams that use tools of their choice. They're making it possible to scale as you need to, run in a cloud environment where you can pay only for what you use. They're making it possible to reuse existing services and data. APIs are a layer that you put on top of your services and data, and they're a common lingua franca that's understood by all applications. They're making it possible to adapt to market change. You can quickly modify and redeploy individual microservices behind the scenes in a fraction of the time you would need to modify a legacy application. They're secure and reliable. We'll walk through how microservices can be designed for high availability and high security with layers of security and a reactive architecture. And they can run anywhere. Microservices can run in the private cloud, in the public cloud, they can run across multiple clouds, and most commonly, they run in hybrid scenarios with some services on premises and others in the cloud. And everything has to be delivered faster. So if microservices-based applications are the most modern, flexible, scalable way to achieve all of these goals, why isn't everyone adopting them? Well, it comes down to three things. The first one is your existing systems are kind of stodgy and difficult to change. You might have packaged apps that were built in-house, and when you make a change to a single service in that app, you need to wait until the next deployment cycle to get that change reflected in production. SaaS applications are easy to deploy and they're available right out of the box, but often they have APIs that are complex and need a lot of investment and advanced technology to understand. And of course, your legacy applications can be difficult to connect to as well, but they may contain key historical data about your customers and products. We're also working in a world where there's a lot of complex new technology. Developing cloud applications requires a completely different perspective. You're running in an environment where you don't know what containers are going to be up and down, and you have to make sure that each one is secured against any kind of attack. It's a zero trust environment. There are lots of new DevOps tools that are needed if you want to be able to roll things out automatically. And there's a steep learning curve to pick up all these things: Kubernetes, Docker, Git, GitHub. I could go on and on. And finally, a really critical thing is the connection between business and IT. When these teams are focused on different goals, then IT can be investing a lot of effort in things that aren't as much benefit to the business, and the business might not be seeing the reaction time that it's looking for its critical differentiating capabilities. The organization's structured into silos so that they aren't motivated to work together. How do you modernize your existing systems without rebuilding them? How do you learn about these complex new technologies while you're delivering? And how do you ensure strategic alignment between the business and IT? Well, we'll start with talking about designing for innovation and how you can deliver agility and competitive new services without disrupting stable core capabilities. It's about evolution, not revolution. In a classic SOA architecture, you can build apps based on a complex, layered back-end business processes. There might be an ESB layer or a packaged app that's serving up APIs, and there are lots of advantages to this approach if you have stable systems with low processing requirements. The reality is, you don't need to turn all your ESB services into microservices. In many cases, the job your main ESB is doing is perfectly fine. But if your packaged apps aren't changing quickly, you don't need a rapid deployment model. But you can take some of that data and you can create new services that you can break out as microservices in a hybrid approach. You can create new microservices to open up new channels or new lines of business. Let's say you want to create a mobile app that used to be something that was internal, but now you want your customers to have access to their order list or their historical orders. You would create new microservices for the application itself, but then you would rely on that historical data coming from your big data or your legacy systems of record where it exists. A textbook microservices architecture replaces that ESB layer or BPM layer completely with individual containerized microservices communicating via events. The independence of each of these microservices is appealing if you want the freedom to let your developers develop in their choice of platform, and if each one of these microservices needs to change frequently, like those Netflix microservices we were talking about. Work with business users to understand the strategic goals for each project so you can choose the right architecture. The microservices runtime from webMethods is a way that you can accelerate the delivery of those microservices. It's based on the integration server, but it's about 1/4 the size, and it's purpose-built for microservices development. It has the ability to develop in Flow, which is a drag and drop logical language. You can develop in .NET, you can develop in Java, but it comes with a whole library of built-in services and recipes. And when you're doing orchestration and mapping, it's just a drag and drop. It has pre-built supported connectors to hundreds of on-premises applications and SaaS applications, so you don't have to learn those complex API interfaces. And you can leverage lightweight messaging for event-based communication. Being able to connect to SaaS apps, packaged apps, data sources, and technologies in the cloud and on-premises is often the major requirement for a service. That's where your data and your capabilities are coming from. And pre-built connectors are the way to go. For example, when Zuora releases a new version and you can just plug in the fix instead of redeveloping, retesting, and redeploying your custom connector, it can save you a lot of time and energy. Other new challenges arise when you're running microservices-based applications in the cloud. IP addresses can change, so you don't know exactly where that service is that you were calling. And security is zero trust. Sometimes servers go away. You need to modify your software so it can be resilient and react to a service not being available. Upgrading and making changes is a completely different process. You now have a whole DevOps lifecycle. And the number of people and systems accessing your solutions can spike, requiring scalability far beyond what your on-premises systems need. That's where the idea of a reactive architecture comes in. This is about being able to react automatically and seamlessly to issues. The key areas for services are being able to self-register your services, so those IP addresses are irrelevant because you always know where the service is. Self-healing services, when connections go down and don't respond, having patterns like circuit breaker built in to your microservices runtime so you can implement them and handle that instability. Self-scaling services, having a pre-built integration to Kubernetes so that you can use Kubernetes health checker for automatic failover. And finally, self-monitoring services, automatically collecting metrics in tools like Prometheus and using tools like Grafana so you can visualize those metrics and understand what's happening. With these types of protections in place, your microservices-based apps can be more stable and reliable, even than a standalone packaged or legacy application. A service mesh is an infrastructure layer that also helps manage network communications between microservices, and it does it in what looks like a mesh. You can apply policies or rules to the entire mesh, and those rules can be things like network security, maybe SSL, when you see HTTPS in your URL. Service discovery, so you always know how to find the service for placing an order, for example. Failover, automatic failover, so when one service fails, it automatically goes to a different one. And logging, collecting the logs from each one of those individual microservices. Putting those requirements on the mesh alleviates the need for developers to write all of these cloud-specific capabilities. And so it means your mainstream developers don't need to become uber experts on how to do these things. So this is another tool that creates faster time to value and better reliability for your IT organization. One of the key concepts to unite the business and IT in building these types of applications is a domain. A domain is a business capability, like order management or logistics or billing or notification, but it's owned by a blended team. Each domain is an independent but cohesive group that offers public services, like in this case, we have place order, but they also might have dozens of microservices components that operate internally to deliver those APIs. Business APIs at the edge are the formally defined entry points. And these business APIs can be called by mobile applications, by business partners, by other applications, and even by other microservices. And domains are one way to align technology with the business. If we think back to the picture that we looked at of how to determine what level of complexity for your architecture, in areas of the business that move slowly, legacy ERP applications like SAP that won't change frequently, you have these stable monolithic applications like we see in domain A, and you can layer APIs on top of them to access the services and data. But some domains, let's say human resources, could be a hybrid. So if you look in the center, you might have HR in Bulgaria using a different system than HR in India. And those are monolithic applications. But you may have microservices that you use to build a worldwide company lookup service. So this is kind of a blended domain from a technology perspective. And your third domain could be a new customer-facing application that's created in the cloud, born in the cloud, built for mobile users with microservices and APIs. This ties back to that first guideline: choose the right technology for the business needs. And domains help you structure your organization and technology to make that happen. With all these domains, do you need separate operations and management for each one? Preferably not. You want to use the same resources for governance, management, and operations. And the best way to do that is to create an API management layer which works with API gateways at the edge of each domain. You can have this end-to-end lifecycle of governance that an API management tool delivers. And you can use it not only for your APIs, but also I'm going to show you how you can use it for your microservices. This helps you reduce the risk that an API or a microservice will change. It could be a key piece in a whole chain of service invocations that would break something that's customer facing. So reducing that risk helps the business ensure that your end product is stable. But it's not just about governance. We talked earlier about the need to be agile, to make changes to your application in flight, to react to customer needs, to create adaptive products. But microservices can be hard to manage, and that's where webMethods AppMesh comes in. I'd like to introduce you to the newest addition to the webMethods API Management platform. AppMesh is the key to accelerating your digital transformation. What it is it's a set of micro gateways that work together with each microservice. They're managed centrally from the API gateway, and they provide deep visibility for both IT and business app owners to see and manage all their microservices and APIs. There's a single nerve center for visibility and control, and that's the API gateway. And then from the API gateway, you can apply policies, which are a type of rule to change the behavior of the service. These policies can be everything from advanced security policies that protect private data, or they can be something like transforming what the service does based on where the request is coming from. If a request is coming from India, make sure you show the cost in rupees, for example. AppMesh helps you discover all the services that are in your mesh automatically, and then publish them as APIs into your API lifecycle so you can reuse them and govern them. It enables you to connect with other SaaS and on-premise APIs because now everything is exposed as an API, so it's very easy to build those integrations. And it provides advanced user-based security and private data protection. Security is all about layers, and while Service Mesh delivers the network layer, there are user authorization and authentication layers, and there are data protection layers that are critical to deploy in the cloud to ensure that you're protecting both your customers and your data. AppMesh is really the key to accelerating your digital transformation. It gives you deep visibility for both the IT and the business application owners so they can see and manage all of their microservices and APIs. It gives you enterprise-class reliability with a reactive architecture, robust monitoring, and the ability to layer in advanced security. And finally, to get IT and line of business owners working together so they can identify projects that will spur the growth of the business. It helps you deliver key initiatives faster with built-for-purposes microservices runtime and a policy-based nerve center that lets you make changes without changing the code. I'm thrilled to share the recently released Forrester Wave, which positions us as the strongest current offering and tied for the strongest strategy. There's some wonderful comments from Forrester here about our vision and how our solution is flexible enough to support a wide range of API strategies. I encourage you to go to our website and download the detailed analysis and read all of the comments in person. If you're not familiar with Software AG, we're a leader in the digital world. We've been around for over 50 years. We can count 50% of the Fortune 100 as our customers, and we have over 2.5 million users. We have 10,000 customers in 70 plus countries. 7 out of 10 banks in the US are customers of Software AG, and they trust in us. And finally, see why we're a leader by downloading the Forrester Wave. You can follow us on YouTube. There are regular product demos and videos on YouTube, and you can contact me to let me know what you'd like to see next. Learn more about AppMesh at softwareag.com/appmesh. Okay, back to you, Vance.
Anne-Marie, great session. Really wonderful how you put together the trends in business and IT right now, especially as folks are looking at all sorts of distributed environments, and how sometimes APIs can be great, but other times it's really an initiative to move forward with a microservice, and really valuable perspective. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
So let's tap into a couple of these questions, especially connecting IT and business. We got some questions from both sides of the house here. Overall, you gave us a lot of insight into how IT thinks and how they should communicate to business. What's the number one recommendation you've got from an IT point of view for convincing business users to invest in a microservice project?
Well, Vance, I think I would turn that question around a little bit because it's not so much about convincing the business that they should go to microservices, but really understanding what the goals are and what the speed of innovation is in each area of the business so you can choose the right solution, the right technology for the right goal. There are some cases where microservices are absolutely the right choice. There are other cases where reusing what you have and exposing it via APIs is the least expensive and the most logical solution. So I would recommend just taking an approach where you look at what the requirements are from the business side before you decide what the technology solution is.
Excellent, Anne-Marie, excellent. You know, this one sounds like it must come from an IT person, somewhat of a realist maybe. The question here says, why is the success rate still so low for some microservices implementations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there are lots of reasons. I think the complexity of the technology is certainly one reason, but I think it also comes back to how you approach your microservices development. When we first started out with microservices, people were going out and just taking these open source microservices platforms and coding them up in Java themselves and Dockerizing their own containers and pushing them out onto Amazon themselves. And while that was great in terms of prototyping, just proving the concept, it doesn't work at enterprise scale. If you want your mainstream developers to be able to build microservices-based applications, you have to give them tools that they'll be able to use without having to dive deep into how to Dockerize containers and how to fail over to another container. And that's where starting from a platform that already has a lot of that stuff built in for you can make a huge difference. And I'm hoping that over time, as those tools start to become better integrated with the platforms that developers are using, we'll see those numbers, successful microservices implementations, come up.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like a lot of what you talked about today, Anne-Marie, is actually some efforts for both technology and best practice for how software AG can push that number up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the goal for us, is to be able to help developers build things faster, build things easier, create things that are more reliable from the get-go.
Excellent. You know, you mentioned a couple of times, Anne-Marie, this idea that you can go to microservices without a big, huge, or what you called a big bang, expensive approach. That caught some interest here. How should companies think about how microservices and APIs coexist? You gave some great schematic slides on that, as a matter of fact. Maybe give us a little more of your thinking about how we don't have to do the big upgrade. We can do it incrementally.
Well, I look at APIs as the public-facing door that lets you get to the service. But an API doesn't have to be just a door into a microservice. It could also be a door that lets you access data that's sitting in your ERP system, your SAP system, for example, or your other packaged applications. So APIs are sort of the front face of your product capabilities. But behind the scenes, what microservices let you do is they let you scale out really easily. So they let you build products that can grow to accommodate a much larger set of consumers. And they also let you change things more quickly. So if you have a product that you anticipate needing to tweak, adjust, build onto, let's say you have one of those omni-channel retail products where you have multiple brands behind the scenes. Each one of those brands could be an individual microservice, and you want to be able to add new brands seamlessly without changing the front end of that application. That's a really good solution for microservices, and the API is the front face to the consumer. Behind the scenes, those microservices are letting you add new capabilities and change things without affecting that front face.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. So a state-of-the-art application architecture actually would use both in concert with each other.
Absolutely. Yep, they work together really well.
Super. You know, I see time is just about up, Emery, but we can't let you go without having a conversation about AppMesh. You gave some great slides on how it works and what Software AG's vision is. Give us a little better info on what the implementation model would be. Does it compare with technologies that might be considered like a service mesh? Give us a little extra info on that.
Sure, Vance. AppMesh is really a brand new thing. It's something we just came out with this year. And the idea behind AppMesh is you want to be able to manage your microservices and govern your microservices in the same way that you can manage and govern your APIs. But beyond that, today, when you're making changes to your API policies, essentially affects how those APIs behave. When you apply those policies to microservices, you can change how microservices behave. And AppMesh is a level above what the service mesh can do. The service mesh handles network level policies. The AppMesh handles application level policies. So while a service mesh might be able to say, for example, if you call this service and it's not here, roll over to this other service. The AppMesh might be able to do something like, if you're an Indian male who's in his 30s, then change the service results to show them in rupees and for this age range and for this sex. It can actually change how the application itself behaves. And you're doing that using policies, not code. So it's instantaneous. You're not going through a whole service development lifecycle. You're not rolling out new Docker containers to the cloud. It's a powerful concept.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So it gives me kind of a central console, at least a central control point for my distributed environment for this policy level activity.
Exactly.
Excellent conversation, excellent overview. You know, Anne-Marie, I see time has just about expired, but we can't let you go without having you give us a suggestion for next steps. You gave us some great best practices for putting IT and business in sync. We talked technical and product-wise. Give us a suggestion of where we should go next to learn more about what Software AG is doing for enterprise integration these days.
Well, you can always go to our website, softwareag.com, and if you go to /AppMesh, you can learn a little bit more about AppMesh. You can contact me, and we have regular product demos and videos on YouTube. You can always go to our YouTube channel, and you can see it in action. You can see the products themselves. You can see lots of other videos and webinars that we've recorded. And our product manager, Shemek Kulik, has been rolling out these fun little 1 to 2 minute, very personalized videos from home, which are lots of fun to watch as well. So download the new Forrester Wave for API Management, all these things out there for you to go out and explore, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'm happy to talk to you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Anne-Marie Bond, Senior Manager, Product Marketing at Software AG. Thanks very much again for a very, very useful look at the state of enterprise integration and especially app integration here in mid-2020. Really appreciate the time, especially how to bring IT and business lots of value from their use of APIs and microservices. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Vance. It's great to be here again.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. And one quick note here, Anne-Marie mentioned several resources. Thanks to her and her team, we've got many of them listed here right in the breakout room, so you can click away to your heart's content. You can get those resources. For those we couldn't fit, here is a slide that'll take you directly to the Software AG website. Download Anne-Marie's slide deck as a PDF. All these links will be live. Thanks again, everyone.